I hope you are all safe and healthy. Today's video is going to be building on the foundations that we established in the last video. We worked on a class called CAT. Just to refresh content from last week, I just want to you to think about a class as a blueprint and then an object as using the blueprint, whatever you construct. So if it's a house, you have a blueprint and then you have an actual house. The actual house is an analogy for a blueprint versus house is an analogy for class and objects. So please keep that in mind. We wrote a constructor, which is a method that gets called anytime an object is created. We wrote methods. Those are going to be actions that are available for the class for that particular object. And then we also created some fields to be used that define our class. So those are some of the activities we did last week. Today, what I want to do is impose some constraints because, there are some rules and regulations anytime we collect data. So I just want to talk through that and see how we can implement that. So here are some rules and regulations that I've imposed on my cat. So when we collect the cat name, ID, color, and age, anytime, let's say displayed. Anytime we want to display the cat's name, it has to be displayed in uppercase. So that's a constraint I'm making. It could be for reporting reasons or whatever reasons we want it to be uppercase. The ID has to be 4 characters long. Age cannot be negative because then the data is incorrect. So the fourth one we don't need. So there is no criteria for color. We are not imposing any criteria for color at this point. So we are okay with whatever is entered in that string. So this is these are some of the constraints that we'll be imposing on the fields, the features that define the cat. We do that. These are called validations because we want to make sure the data we collect is of good quality. That's the reason why we impose some criteria and do some validations. Regarding actions, there are some things that we can implement to make it more meaningful. So when the cat eats, he is not hungry anymore. And that is why we have the hungry flag. So when the cat eats, when we call the eat method, we have to make sure the hungry is set to false. When the cat is not hungry, he doesn't want to eat. So that is another criteria. When the cat is hungry, he doesn't want to play. When the cat is sleepy, he doesn't want to play. So these are some things that you can implement inside the methods for the cat class. So let us see how we can do it. So C#. So in C#, these are called as members. They are always private. So we are using encapsulation, which means everything that can define all the methods and the properties are inside the cat class, and that's what we have. Abstraction is something we provide where we are hiding the implementation details from the user. So somebody who uses the cat doesn't know how the cat methods are implemented internally. So we keep that. There is no transparency for them. They just can use the method, but they don't get access to modify it. So these are something we provide. So it is absolutely important for us to make sure that these guys remain private, that only the methods inside can access these guys. But what if we want to actually modify the name, color, ID, and age from outside of the class? So in order to do that, we can use something called as properties. So these are called as members or fields. So if we want to implement that, we can call them as properties. So properties are public. Usually we can have them as public, and properties let you so there is getter and setter for a property. A getter means it allows you to get the value. Setter means it's a method that allows you to set the value for a given field. So that is what a getter and setter is all about. So we are going to see how to make it. So the first goal is we want to expose these without compromising the object-oriented programming approach. We want to expose them, but we also want to make sure that they are protected. So that is what we are going to be doing right now. So we want to add a wrapper on top of this name. The name has to be shrouded in another function, which is public. So by default, this name is private, even though we don't say private here. But we want to create a wrapper. So we will say public string name. And then we have a get. And then we have a set. This is the basic functionality. So let me just move this guy. So you can see better. So this is the basic structure of a getter setter. Okay, so instead of calling this name, we'll be calling this name. Instead of using this name, we'll be using this name. From outside of the class because it is public string name. So the get will take this value and return it to the calling method. The set will take the value, which this is a keyword called value. It will take the keyword and then set it to the property here. Okay, a get will be when you ask for a cat's name, when the user sets the cat's name. So that is get and a set. That's what it is. So usually without this, also you can do without using explicit get and set. Also we can process information, set properties, and I'll show you that in a second. But just understand the way it is supposed to work. A getter, this is when you ask for a cat's name. This is when you want to set the value of a cat's name. So let us see how this happens. Let's go outside here. Let's try this here in the mycat dot. When I say mycat dot, then on the small lowercase name never comes, but the uppercase comes because it is public. So this is available now for me. Oops, name equal to can a cat have a name Tim? I don't know. So I just set the name of the cat to Tim. And then let me set a breakpoint here and then run this code. See how that works. Please make sure you test incrementally. You can see now that the name of the cat is set as Tim. We never sent it in the constructor. The constructor is empty, but we are able to set the name property that is public. We did not set the lowercase name. So see, we never had access to this guy, but we had access to this guy. This guy is private, this guy is public. So this guy sets this guy for us. I hope that makes sense. So let's look at the rule that we set. The rule is name has to be displayed as uppercase when asked. Let me stop the execution of the code. The name has to be displayed as uppercase when asked. So that is the rule for us. So when they ask for the name, when the user asks for the name, which is in the get, we want to return it in uppercase. In this case, Tim came as T uppercase and I am as lowercase. So we want to call a method called to upper. So this would set the name to upper. How it saves doesn't matter, but every time you ask for the name, it is going to come in uppercase. Let's try this out. So I set it as T uppercase I am, and let's see how the display is. So let me run it one more time. So there is one more area we have to modify. So we can see here, the name is still coming as lowercase Tim, because we are storing it as lowercase and we want to only when it's asked, we want to convert it to uppercase. So the problem is inside the class here, once we have a public property, we have to use the same property instead of this guy. We have to use this guy instead of this guy. So if you go down here in my intro, I have to change this to uppercase name. Okay, so let's try that now. So I'm uppercase Tim now because I am using the public property. So what if we always save it as lower uppercase? So you can do that. If you want to always save it as uppercase, you can say so when you do this, you don't need to do this. So let me see how that works also. So here I am saving it. I am saving the value as uppercase, which means it will always be uppercase, whether I ask for it or set it. So this is going to be always lowercase. So let me stop one more time. So even now even Tim, the name, lower score name is uppercase Tim. The property, public property is also uppercase Tim because I set it at the time of storage, I set it to uppercase. So it depends. I mean, I'm not too keen on like which way I want to do it, but we know how to do it either way. So when asked, when I say asked or stored, that's the difference. So name has to be displayed as uppercase when stored. That's what I've done right now. It's up to you which way you want to do. So the point I want to make is if you declare a public property for your cat, if you have a public property that is going to take care of handling this private field, then use this guy everywhere in your code inside your class. Okay, so use the public property instead of the private field. Otherwise, your data will be different.